Um, the last thing that I want to talk about tonight is just kind of like some women that I work with who I think are pretty great. Like I like them a lot, but they're so interesting. They're so interesting. Um, so there's one woman that I work with, and she's like usually well she's like a master's degree in education. I think she's pretty great. I love talking to her about just school and all the things that are happening there. But like recently, she's been having kind of like a maybe there's other things happening in her life which are causing her stress, right? And so even as there's like this external stress in her life, in other aspects of her life, like she still has to come to work, right? She still has to like pay her bills. She still has to like adult. That's like a real part of life. Everyone has to adult. Um, but it feels almost like right now, possibly the job may be like a little bit overwhelming. Maybe like a lot overwhelming. And that's kind of weird to watch. It's not weird to watch, it's just maybe interesting to watch. And then there's another character who I work with, and I think this is kind of interesting. So I feel like I don't have any roommates or anything. Like I don't like other people. I've told you guys this. I don't really like living with other people or just nothing. Like other people aren't really like my favorite. Anyway, anywho, so the most of the people who I feel like I keep coming across, they all have like six or seven roommates, right? And or they have two or three roommates. Everyone has like a ton of roommates, and like I feel like they are all understanding like young adulthood in relation to their roommates. This is why like the streaming stuff is really popular. There everyone's watching all of these streamers who seem to, some of them have opinions. Like I found this one guy who was talking about Meg the Stallion's or Tory Lanez being sentenced, and he was like a black kid, and he seemed to have like a pretty like normal response to it. Like he felt like he should be sentenced to it. He gave a pretty like realistic take on the fact that he probably could have gotten more years, but might actually just serve less time because of like the way that leniency works and things like his entire take seemed pretty rational, and I just deeply appreciated that like a lot. Um, and it felt like there weren't anyway, so sorry. The point of this, I was going back to talking about kind of some of the women who I work with because they're just so fucking interesting. Um, I guess maybe I'll just stick with that story for now. There's like two other stories which I can tell, but I kind of maybe I'll save those. I'll save those stories for another day when I write them out. But I want to tell those stories. And I almost want to write about those stories. Maybe one of the stories I'll tell you guys. I'll tell you guys a story about me. So I'm actually not like a singer proper. I'm also not really a writer proper, but I know I've had a pretty good education, and if you've been listening to some of my latest videos, you'll hear some takes that I don't necessarily consider them like political. It's just more like me observing things I see in society. Now, other people see these things in society too, but for some reason they're not writing about them. And then now I go out into society because just I'm like a person. I'm not going to like stop existing just for whatever reason. But one thing that I've noticed has happened to me, other people in the black community who mostly have always lived in like segregated societies or who have had way worse educational experiences than I have, they look at a person like me, and now I'm not going out trying to like introduce myself to them and explain all of these things about myself to them. If they had questions about me, I figured they would ask or try to get to know me, right? That would be like what you would do to anyone, so that's the assumption that I'd make. They don't typically do that though. They just look at the like new black girl and they're like, who the fuck is she? And then they all start gossiping amongst each other. Everyone go, I heard she did this, I heard this, I heard this, and they try to like stalk you. So now like some of my stalkers back in California were actually black. Others, I had like this Chinese girl who was a stalker, and then I had this like I think it's like I know there were like at least two hackers who, because they would always like break my internet, and I was right on the campus because like everyone thought it was strange because in the community in which I lived, they'd never had any example of just like a black girl with an apartment. Like I was not this like phenomenal person. I was like literally just girl in apartment, black girl in apartment. That was like it. And even that was like so shocking for them. Like they couldn't, none of it made any sense. They were like, what's wrong with her? Oh, she must be this. Oh my God, where did she come from? What's her story? I've never seen one. Like racial socialization is a real thing. And it's a part of like just existing in society, just doing really regular things, going to dinner, going to breakfast, having a job, interacting with people, having coworkers, riding the bus, okay, buying your groceries. Really normal shit that like everyone does. You have to do it too because it gets other people accustomed to like you being alive in the space right now, which is a real thing that has to happen to everyone. Like you have to do it, I have to do it. We all have to do it. It's just it's just a part of like being alive. You have to go forward. Um, yeah, I just kind of wonder, like I do feel like a lot more people are more aware of this like extra introverted and opinionated lifestyle like mine, and probably more people will gravitate toward it as they understand who we are and what we do and what we mean and what we like and how we function, and they will kind of stem away from street culture, urban life, exaggerated manifestations of nothing. And they would probably rather be a little bit more conservative. I think being conservative is just probably sticking to traditions, sticking to things that like typically like make sense. Probably being a little bit more sexually conservative, probably a lot more. I mean, even if you're not living by the like no sex before marriage, probably coming to a place where you realize that having sex in a monogamous relationship makes sense and just doing that, okay? Otherwise, having no relationship. And then just understanding really normal vetting processes to get into a relationship, like going on dates with people, making sure that your other person has a job, and making sure that they want to be in a relationship with you. Those are like the three steps. There's not really more steps than that. That's, I don't know why we don't actually need all of these shows on like dating coaches and stuff. I think that you should just be very aware of the fact that like most, not, I will, yeah, I mean all of the examples that I've seen are this, like most black men in this society do not want to be in relationships with anyone. I feel like one day they usually grow to a place where they decide out of the blue, like on a Tuesday, just out of the blue they decide to be married. But before that day comes, they just, I don't really feel like they are very interested in being in relationships. Now that is important for black women to know, because just a part of your own growth, you're going to have relationships with people. I would encourage you to not have some of your first relationships be with a black male. I think you should go date someone else. Just at really, and maybe also I would say not a man of color. So someone who's either in college with you, who is not of color. I'm sorry, but as just lessons that I've learned. Like look at all the examples: Kiki Palmer's boyfriend, Kelly Stamps' boyfriend. I mean, these men, they all make the exact same mistake, and a lot of it just comes from like brute insecurity. And men are supposed to be the leaders in the relationship. So if your man is like fucking up and he can't even figure out a nothing, like you don't have hope to like be do more. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to believe me though. There's a like you will have a lot of utility in the world. You will find a lot of value in the world just by learning how to live on your own. Now, I'm not saying forever. I'm definitely not advocating go be alone forever, be a little hermit with all your cats and shit. But I will say that being alone with your cats and shit is like probably a better life than living with a man who does not want to be with you, who doesn't love you, and who doesn't see your value. I will probably continue to make these videos probably like as long as I live. So, welcome. We can just be here together. Like, I'm totally fine with this. Like, I make enough money to like at least buy like a bottle of wine every week and talk shit. So, like, and I feel like Kenya's going to keep going. So, we have me, we have Kenya. It looks like Kelly's gonna do skits for at least a little bit longer. So that is 3 channels, okay, that are guaranteed to be here of black girls who are giving you something that is not just utter ratchetness. Which is another reason I think I'm gonna go to some of the like I showed you guys some of my notes. And maybe I'll actually post. I didn't really want to post it, but maybe I will. There's one take from yesterday that I thought was really good. It covering so basically I've been practicing covering Sabrina Claudio songs, and I realized how hard it is. Sabrina Claudio is very honest in her songwriting, and she like conveys this like vulnerable feminine emotion that is it's very hard to fake. It is very difficult to fake that emotion. Um, so the fact that she, when you try to cover her songs, you quickly realize that like either you kind of got it or you don't, because like it's way hard to fake. She's really good at conveying emotions. So yeah.